Okay, and we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to the 81st panel discussion of the South Sudan Women Intellectual Forum. On today, we will discuss with young female parliamentarians on the challenges and opportunities that they face, and we will be able to hear from them on what their experience has been and how this new dawn of the parliament is a new start for the country. Just a little bit of a background. The revitalized Transitional National Legislative Assembly was revitalized the other day, and we have more members, around 650 in total. And this was a new opportunity for young people to be able to join Parliament, to be able to have not only their voices heard, but also be leaders for their constituents. I would like to welcome my panelists here today in no particular order or any particular hierarchy. I'd like to welcome Honorable Nyaboin Bolwor. She's a new member of parliament, Upper Nile State, but I will allow her to introduce herself shortly. I'd like to welcome Honorable Akuch Majer Maniel from Lake State. She will also be able to introduce herself shortly. We have Honorable Margaret Germa Lukoringang from Pibor Administrative Area. She'll be able to also introduce herself. And Honorable Yarsela Ring from Lake State as well. She's joining us on this panel. And we have Honorable Christine Naboy, who will be joining us shortly, joining the discussion. So first of all, I'd like to congratulate all of you for your appointment at the Assembly. And before we begin, I think it will be great for you to just give us a short introductions about yourself and also the constituencies that you serve. Let me start with Honorable Margaret Girma. Please, the floor is yours. Would you please unmute yourself? Honorable Margaret? Okay, as she's still trying, yes. Honorable Margaret, welcome to this session of the South Sudan Women Intellectual Forum. If you could kindly just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background about yourself.
Okay, thank you. I think I was having an internet issue, but now I can get you. I'm Margaret Girma Lukunyanglado from Greater Pibor Administrative Area, Pibor Constituency. It's my first time to be in the Parliament, and I have worked in other places, like I've worked with African Union in Nigeria, and I am one of the co-founders of South Sudan Youth for Peace and Reconciliation.
Thank you so much, Honorable Margaret. Honorable Akuch, if you can please unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Okay, I hope you're getting me clearly.
Yes, we are. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the entire leadership of South Sudan Women Intellectual Forum and to you, Nyadak, in particular. I go by the names of Akuch Majer Miniel, and I represent Yorul East in the Revitalized Transitional National Legislative Assembly.
Great, thank you very much. Honorable Nyaboin, you're welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, she needs to unmute herself. We're not getting her.
Honorable, please unmute yourself. Yes, you're muted.
Hello. Okay. My name is Nyaboin Bol, Upper Nile State. I'm representing my ward county, constituency number 29. My background, I was working with international organization, DI, which is Democratic International, as a program officer. So I'm so happy to join this platform today with the other young parliamentarians, which are my colleagues. I really thank you and the whole team in general. Thank you.
You can please unmute yourself as we welcome Honorable Yarsela. Please welcome.
Thank you so much, Nyadak, Aisha as well, South Sudan Women Intellectual Forum, for having me again. I am honored and privileged to be here again with this amazing young parliamentarians. My name is Yar Telar from Lake State, Ural West.
Thank you so much, all. Once again, we do have as well Honorable Christine Naboy. She's still having some connection issues, but as soon as she's able to fix that, we will have her join us on this panel. Once again, congratulations on your appointment. This is a very big deal and actually the first for South Sudan. And I'm sure you are all honored and excited to be pioneers of a very new dawn for this country, and also a new space where young people are not able to only have their voices heard, but they're able to be seen and represented in an entity like the National Legislative Assembly. I'd just like to ask before we begin, just briefly, you can give us some of your reactions. Was it something you were expecting? Was it something that you had worked for in the time period before your appointment? Honorable Akut, your mic is on, so I'll start with you.
Well, thank you once again, Mrs. Nyataklam. I think my first reaction was I was very excited. Of course, who will not be excited if you are put in a position of leadership? I was excited, but at the same time, I had mixed feeling. I was not only excited, but I was also, a bit worried about the big task that was ahead of me. So I had mixed feelings about my appointment. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we move on, Honorable Kuch, if you can kindly mute. Yes, thank you. Before we move on to give room for others to answer the question, I'd like to welcome Honorable Christine Naboy Peter, who has just joined us. Honorable Christine, your fellow colleagues had already introduced themselves, so I'd like to take this opportunity to allow you to introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of a background about yourself. Honorable Christine, if you can just unmute. Yes, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm sorry for connecting late. I hope I'm not that late. I'm called Christine Naboy Peter from Eastern Equatoria State. I'm representing Budi County from the ticket of SPLM. I have been so active. Most of the young youth who started the leadership early. As an activist from the university, from primary, from secondary, I've always been the lead. And this is an opportunity for me. I work with the National Youth Union as a Secretary General who organized the first youth convention that brought into power the current Minister of Youth and Sport. I work with NGOs. I have a privilege to be here today. Last time I was in UN Women here during the time of Madame Z. I also managed to get a lot of transformation leadership from her, and I got a lot of skill. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. While this mic is still on you, I think I'll also take the opportunity to allow you to answer the question that I had raised to the surface, which is, what is your reaction when you were appointed? Was it something you were waiting for? Is it something that you had known previously, or did it come as a surprise to you?
But it's something that I was looking forward to. And I have been always asked to join politics. Come up. Are you not ready? And then, being a young SPLM cadre that has been active for so long, the leadership, especially from my state, has always wanted me to step forward. I think I joined not that late. You know, when you see my colleagues, they started early enough. I was with those of Agel Machar, Lam Tungwa. Majority of them become ministers at the state level and all that. But I have been taking my own space to continue to learn and prepare myself. Now this time I say, here I am. I'm ready for it. Let me take it.
That's extremely wonderful. I think it's a long time serving, so I think you are ready and prepared for that. Honorable Nyabun, same question. How were your feelings? People around you, family, your constituents, were they excited to finally see this amazing young woman in Parliament?
First of all, not everybody will be excited, of course. But to be specific, young people are like, yes, at least we have our chance now. We have somebody who is at our age that will understand us and speak to us freely, that we can also put our voice through her so that they can be fully represented. They feel like the previous generation, they always have that limit. Okay, they are not free, like coming to community, for example, challenges that are facing communities. Communities does not have people, somebody that is open, that can sit there with them, be with them during the hard time, for example, during funerals, during their happiness and all that. They always tend to preserve themselves, like seeing themselves, you know, called honorables. I don't know. For me, I just look at it as like, it's just something that can come in and goes every time. But what matters is you are still you, yourself. Nothing should change from you. You should continue your activities the way you used to be, but now with more power, energy added.
Okay, thank you so much for that insight. Honorable Margaret, I think you would be the first from Pibor administrative area, and then also a young person. I think we would really love to know how your fellow young people, your colleagues, your peers, and your constituent mates felt about, you know, finally having someone, and how was the support?
Thank you, Ms. Nyadak. I'm not actually the first. There are other MPs from Pibor administrative areas, and I'm fortunate enough to be a member of parliament. But I would say I was expecting it to come because I was already active in political area, and I was privileged enough to be part of to be involved in the peace negotiations, and from there I was one of the female to be part of National Pre-Transitional Committee, which is NPTC, in charge of dissemination and publicity. So being active, actually, NPTC was already a political forum. So everyone was expecting me to join politics automatically after the end of NPTC. So I was privileged enough to earn the trust of my chairperson. And after the NPTC, they decided that the best place that I can serve in is being in the parliament, because I was already connected with the community, and I have visited to all the visitors 10 states of South Sudan. So I think it was a good opportunity for me to be in the parliament. So I was expecting it.
Wow, okay. And by the first, I mean as a young person. Of course, I know there has been several MPs before, but I personally don't think I've met another young person who has, you know, gone to great heights from that amazing area. And it will be great, of course, to hear more from you as we keep on going. Let me move along. Honorable Nyaboin, you can please unmute yourself. Honorable, if you could kindly unmute yourself.
Is it?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to know a little bit of your reflections. Were you expecting the appointment when the news came? How did you feel? Did you have any regrets? Were you scared?
Hold on.
I think as we wait for Honorable Nyabon, I will move along to Honorable Yatilat. Same question, and then we will have the Honorable join us.
I think Honorable Okuch earlier mentioned that it was mixed feelings. I'd say as well mine was mixed feelings because first of all, this was my late father's seat. And being an unmarried woman from my area where marriage is everything, it was quite hard to see some, I mean, most of the people didn't expect that I would represent my constituency because of my marital status. But however, I think from a young age, I loved politics. I really loved and enjoyed watching my dad go through all the motions in politics. And I knew one time I would definitely pick it up. Not as expected, how it came, but then it happened. And here I am today, taking it a day at a time.
Do you think your profession and the way people already know you as this great lawyer, do you think it played a role in how people expect you to show up in this role?
I think it literally plays a role in so many things because then you're in legislation, so you're expected to be able to do better. But also at the same time, I would say the expectations were a bit too high. Not only on the young people, but generally the whole parliament. The expectations are really, really high from everyone else. But we hope that we'll live up to the expectations of the people.
Wonderful. Honorable Nyabon, can you please unmute yourself?
Okay.
Yes? Okay. I was asking the same questions to the fellow ladies on this panel. Is that when your appointment came along, how did you feel? Was it something you were waiting for, or did it come as a surprise?
Well, when my appointment came along, it was very amazing because this is what I've been yearning for years. It was not a surprise because I fought for it. It was my choice to join politics, and I really fight for it to get that position. When it came at the time, it was amazing, and I really welcome it. There is no regret on it. It was my choice.
Wonderful. Just before we move on, I'd like to remind everybody that you can put your questions in the chat box. We will be able to share them with our panelists later on. So please feel free, ask the questions that you need to ask, and we'll be ready to answer your questions. So moving on, I think one of the biggest questions that people have had, and also as young women in the space, in civil society around the area, is that for a lot of people, the biggest fear was that because you're young, people will take advantage of the fact that you are young, whether or not you are competent enough. And then the question comes in of competency is that because you're young, it means you're automatically incompetent. Being that we have known entities like parliaments to be run by older people, but also older men, how do you feel your entrance into the parliament, and especially at a time like this, has a significant outcome or has a significant role that you would like the people to know? I think let me start with Honorable Christine.
Thank you. I don't know where to start from even. But being a young person, first of all, is an issue. Being a woman is another issue. Being a young woman is also an issue. So when you are looked at, first people will not even expect that you are honorable. Then when they realize that you are honorable, they start judging you even before you talk. But the moment you start speaking, that is when you put some sense into themselves and say, okay. So she can actually put something positive forward. Secondly, you are not taken serious actually until you prove yourself that you are more than just the age they are looking at. Yeah.
So just to quickly piggyback off of that, so in the time period that you have spent in the parliament, which has not been long, but how has the experience been with what would be quote unquote older parliamentarians, you would say?
First of all, generally, it's okay until the issues of committees come in. When the issues of selections comes, it is each party sitting to nominate their candidate to the position. So we went to this room whereby it is full of men and women. We happen to be only 2 young people from our party. So when it comes to the seats of women, they're supposed to take 5 people. Obviously, 2 women and 3 men as usual. When it comes to proposing names, so I propose myself on the side of women to represent my constituency. Then they were like, no, you know, this issue of politics, they play before time. By the time you come and sit, when they have already divided the bread, who is taking what, and who will start proposing somebody and all that. So they realize that if I stand forward to say I need a position to represent women in that bigger hall, definitely I might be supported. So they had a strategy whereby the ladies has to go out and propose the women has to go out and propose their people. There are 2 people. Going out there, women, they already had their own personnel. So reaching there, they are like, for us here, not telling you how parliament has been running and even who is next. And yet this is the joint parliament whereby we're supposed to start fresh. But now they are taking you back. So and so took it before. Now this time we are giving so and so and all that. Yet the document was so clear. They needed competence and efficient personnel. I told them I see myself fit for that position because I'm competent and efficient. It was not written anywhere that it is about the age. Yeah. They're like, you are a young girl, you have other opportunities coming, you need to sit there back and learn. There are a lot of opportunity coming. Next time, if something come online, we will have you in mind. You will take that one. I told them, no, let me try this one, let me fail. They are like, no, this is not how things are done here and all that. So I was blocked out. You can imagine almost 8 or 9 women standing, pleading for this young lady to step down. I just say, okay, this is how you people do things. You go, you have already set your mind. Just look the number. If you say voting, I can immediately be voted out. So just go with it.
Wow, that is one experience, and I think it's also something that we'll delve in throughout this discussion. Also, the aspect of inequality, not only between the genders, but I think also between the hierarchies that are available. Honorable Akuch, what has been your experience in Parliament so far? Kindly unmute yourself, Honorable Akuch.
You getting me clearly now?
Yes, go on.
Okay, thank you. I think my experience is similar with what Honorable Christian is saying. You know, before I came into the parliament, I was being opposed by somebody. I was being opposed during the time of nomination to when we're being nominated to the position of MPs. Someone was opposing me simply because I was a young person. This person was referring me to be a teenager, that I do not know anything, there is nothing that I know, that I cannot represent my people well. I'm still young, I can't even look people in the eye and talk and all that stuff. But thanks to the people that stood with me, and now I can call myself honorable member of parliament. And I think by the time this parliament is done, I'll be able to prove to them that I'm not just a young person. I'm somebody who's a human being who is smart enough to deliver to the people, somebody who knows and identifies the issues that are facing her community, and she's able to have that strength to be able to raise them in the parliament or in any other platform so that people know that what is going on about her community. So I've had the similar experience like what she had in the past. Yeah.
So then I think I'd be right to say that that the experience would probably be a lot similar for all of us here on the panel. But I think it would be also great to highlight, has someone had a different experience, maybe mostly positive? And also it would be good to know, what about also the young men and the young women that are your peers and your colleagues? How has their support and experience been? Because I've also met other young male parliamentarians. I think let me start with Honorable Yar.
I think all our experiences are more or less the same. However, it's what I usually say is in politics, you just have to grab it. It's not going to be given to you. And the people who say, hey, you don't have the experience, we're the ones who've been here before, you were not born there. You also started the same way we started. So you cannot be telling young women that you do not have the experience. You were not born with the experience. You learned on the job. And if you're learning on the job, why not let us learn on the job? You've been there for quite some time. Let's also try and see what we can bring on the table as well. So I say the experience is quite similar. It just depends on how you handle it as a person. Because then if you're going to let it bog you down, you won't move forward. So you've got to figure out maneuver on how you will fight among the older ones. Because this is all about a political fight. Then now when it comes to the issue of the young males as well, I think the young women are at a very disadvantaged position because then when we go to the youth quarters, we're told we have given you women 35%. When we go to the 35%, the women there are telling us, your youth, go back to the youth. So we're in between. And that's why we need to actually decide we're going to be grabbing these things. No one is going to give them to us. So we'll figure out, unite amongst ourselves and grab whatever opportunity that we can get to make the lives of South Sudanese better.
Thank you. Actually, that's a really great point that segues to my next question because that is also something that a lot of people have had issues with or challenges with or were scared. Because again, you bring up this issue of youth, the issue of women who's this old, and then again you bring in the issue of parties, which is it's another big thing that people have taken as a way to also put obstacles to young parliamentarians. And I think that is a major question we want to ask. I want to ask right now because it's the government of the revitalized Transitional National Legislative Assembly, which means it's several parties. It's not just two parties or three parties as we used to know it before. And I think it's also a great opportunity to have you all from different parties. I'd like to know how do you bring the experience from yourselves, from your parties, and being that you're youth, with several talents and disciplines to be able to use that as an advantage and a guiding force to support youth promotion in the parliament. Honorable Margaret? Honorable Margaret, if you can please unmute yourself. I'll ask the same question to you as we wait for Honorable Margaret to be able to return. How has it been, being that you're from difficult political parties, you're from different age groups in a way? How have you used that to bring it to your advantage to advance youth promotion in the parliament?
Yeah, I think I'm not getting the question clear. You're breaking.
Okay, I think, can you all hear me? Can you? Okay. Honorable Margaret, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear now.
Okay, great. So then let me rewind the question. Yad said so many great things, and I think she helped segue into the next question that I had, which was not only do we have young people, which is very different for how we have known the parliament, we have young people who are from different parties. And this being the Revitalized Traditional National Legislative Assembly, that name is really long. And having that now it has other parties and people from different backgrounds. How have you all used that as a way to promote youth engagement within the parliament?
Yeah, I think the fact people from different parties, different background, different walks of lives make just a cocktail of what makes our work great. So far, amazing. They're having a great engagement in the parliament, and there are so many activities that the youth have been involved in. Those of YAR went to ULIT Summit. The Young Parliamentarian is on the way being established. So I think the experience that other youth had previously before joining the parliament, and the fact that we come from different political background, different affiliation of the parties, makes our work easier, because it is easier for us to bring different ideas and just come up with something amazing.
Thank you. And I think that was a very important point to note, because I know also a lot of young people had the question of they're from different political parties. Is it going to be a barrier to youth promotion in the parliament? So I think it's really good to hear from you that as young parliamentarians, but also as parliamentarians, which is another key point, you're taking that to your advantage and making sure that you're using it to promote the youth agenda. As we move on, we discussed committees a bit earlier, and that is one major thing that I think is also important to ensure that there are young people in these committees and they're not just there by name. We saw recently the appointment of chairpersons and deputy chairpersons of the committees. Honorable Nyabonya, I think it would be great if you can tell us how many youth were appointed to these committees.
Well, according to my understanding, what I know, I cannot tell you exactly the number of the appointee on use. But what I know here is the number of the specialized committees with their deputies is very small compared to the number of the young parliamentarians or the youth which are appointed this year in TNLA. It is not enough for us to have such a number. So we can just feel like the number of the specialized committee which was appointed this year was not meet to our expectation. as a youth.
Yeah, and do you think it was because of age? Were people using it because of experience? A lot of people would say, they don't lack experience because a chairperson of a committee is a very big deal. I've had some people say it even equals to almost the level of a minister. Do you think that could be some of the reasons?
In another way, this is the reason should be the behind, because most of youth, they try in different parties that you have to compete for the position to become one of the specialized committee. But none of your people will not pick you up. So far, that's why most of us have been dropped down. We all try our level best so that we should get a committee, because we are all interesting to come up in this leadership which has been formed in Aga's house. Unfortunately, our whole generation did not give us chance to have enough numbers so that we should exercise our youth, so that they should understand really why we are there and how we should be bringing our country together as they do before.
Oops, I think I muted myself. Woo, this whole muting thing. Yes, I was directing the question to Honorable Akuch. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Yes, great. I was asking the question of being a young MP. What do you think are the opportunities that bring in being a young MP? What are some of the opportunities that are available for young MPs?
Thank you once again. I think there's a lot of positivity that is going on within the parliament. I believe one of the advantages of me joining the parliament is that I've been able to interact with a lot of people. I've also had the chance to travel. Like I attended the unit last year, and I also attended what they call sports game. This was attended by all the parliamentarians from around the region of East Africa. And this has given me the chance to be able to interact with a lot of people, of which, if I was not part of the parliament, I would have not had this opportunity. The other thing is that I'm also gaining experience. I'm gaining experience. I'm getting to know people. I'm getting to know how to do a lot of things. And this is positive for me. It may not be helpful for me right now, but I believe in the near future, I'll be able to know what is going on in the ministry and any other position of leadership that I've been given. I will not be a total stranger to all that is happening within the government since I'm a politician. Yeah, so it's really positive for me.
Okay, Honorable Yang, do you have anything to add on the same question? Some of the opportunities that comes.
I think there are many.
Yes.
Okay. In my opinion, I think there are many opportunities that come up. The main issue now is how do we get them? And if we're going to get them, then it means we need to unite. We need to unite as women, know our strengths, and probably if you as a woman know an opportunity that is beneficial to another woman, why not pass it over to her? Because most of these things, it's all about in our country, it's all about the connections. Which connection do you have? How are you going to help? How are you going to help another woman to do something? There's some opportunities that come up, but most of the people would not want others to go simply because it's not beneficial to them. But then if it's not beneficial to you, it can be beneficial to another woman.
That is really important. And I think it's also a great opportunity for you all to showcase what it means to, do the up bottom approach as well. I think a lot of times we talk about the bottom up approach, but also it's important to understand the opportunities that are availed by the up from the top to bottom approach. That is, also a great advantage that comes with being a young parliamentarian. I want to get into the risk factors as well before we move on. Honorable Christine, what do you think are some of the risk factors of being a young MP?
Okay. Being in politics, I think this is a senior position, being an MP. After that, you won't get any other employment backwards. So the risk is that what is there next? If you are young and you do not play politics well to prosper, to continue, then that is the risk. You will end up not be able to be employed. You will lose so many opportunities as an ordinary person. An ordinary person has so many chances. You can do any other work. But as a honorable, there is no way you can just do any other work. So the challenge for us is we need to keep on positive, keep on prospering in politics. We need to grow in it and to ensure that we succeed and continue progressing.
Yes, Honorable Christine.
Yes, I'm getting you.
Yes, you were still speaking?
Yeah, I was saying being a politician, actually being an MP at the national level,
Yes.
that is almost the top politics in leadership. When you reach that level, there is no way you can go to civil servant and start working there or NGOs or whatever.
Yeah.
That is the final stage. So by the moment you put yourself into politics, make sure you continue progressing, building yourself in it, because there is no going backward. You're only expected to get more senior position because you will not be able, like any other civil servant, that can change from this office to another. That is the risk for us as young people joining politics at this age. By the time you decide, make sure you progress.
Okay, sorry, I think there was a bit of a delay, but we definitely do get your point. That is a big issue. And I think also not only MPs, but also with ministers. I think there are a lot of ministers who, after this point, they can't go back down the labor hierarchy, which will, of course, pose as a problem. Okay, before we move on to other questions, I'd just like to take a few minutes to take questions from the public and from our viewers. Thank you so much for those who have sent in. Those who haven't, you can continue sending in your questions. Right now, I see a question from, I believe this is Honorable Nanoya Aguil, who has a question for Honorable Christine. She says, Honorable Christine, what are the tools you're going to use to progress or grow in politics, as you said?
Okay, thank you, Nanoya. I think politics is a game, as people say, and you need to know how to play it very well. Secondly, for some of us to reach here, you might have done something that draw attention of the leadership towards you. What could that be? For example, in your community, how active are you as a politician, as an MP? As an MP, how is your relationship with your community? How are you connected to your community? What is your contribution towards your community? Apart from the community, you have your party. How is your contribution towards your party? How are you carrying on with the issues of the party? Because there is no way you can come to leadership, for example, without somebody knowing who you are. First, you have to be identified. Your identity comes from your community. How you are active, how you participate, how you are always there. Yeah, leadership does not just drop from anywhere. It has to start from somewhere. Thank you.
we are not getting you, Nyadak.
Oh, my apologies. I think I have muted. Yes. I would like to take another question from Lilija Noel Lasso, who's asking, Honorable Christine and Honorable Nyabon, since you said you have both worked and expected disappointment, what is your youth/women development agenda for your different constituencies? I think we can start with Honorable Nyabon. Lilija is wondering, what is your development agenda for youth and women in your constituency?
Unmute yourself.
Honorable, please unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
I thank you, Lilija Noel, for the question. As I say here, I did not surprise with the appointment because I knew that I worked for it. Why did I say this one? Is because since I got interest to be a politician, I started to develop myself to become one of the members of the parliament one day. So I set my foundation to work with my people, especially the youth and the young women. I lay my foundation there to work with them, to engage myself, be with them. I put myself on their shoes. Whatever they are facing, I make sure that I face it with them. Because when I got that idea that I will be a politician, it came when I was 23 years old. By then, it is when the war broke out in South Sudan. So there are so many things that came to my mind, and then I just feel like I want to join this politics and see how the politics is going to be played, because I'm seeing the burden between the youth and the women. So when I take that idea and then I put it in my mind, so I really work for it, and I really make sure that I win the heart of my fellow women, so that I just lobby from them that I want to be there because of you. As you can see us here, we are young people. When we are in the parliament, we are not there for ourselves. We are just for you people. We are the bush or voiceless. So I can't be in the parliament just keeping quiet, leaving the rest of my colleague and the age mate, which have been promised for long that I will make it for you. I'm there for them, and they know and I know they are there also for me too. So I just want to say there.
And I think also it will be really helpful for our people. Are there particular issues that you want to focus on deal with in regards to youth and women in your constituency? Just maybe a few points of maybe particular issues that you would be focusing on.
Actually, it is a good question to me. If I first said about myself, how I become a politician, I can say it is really hard. In our area, especially Upper Nile, my ward state, it is the first time for them to have a national MP who is female, which means that I break the history by being a national MP. Since 2010, there is no woman from our particular area to come and represent our people. So our women from that time up to now, they have been voiceless. Whatever they need to be addressed to their nation, nobody can even take it forward. So when I see this one, I can feel it like our women, they are vulnerable. So there is no person who can took their voice to the real authority. So when I see this one, it is like all of us, we don't have any leader. We are just mingling ourselves like that. I want to take lead, even if I'm young. So I took that opportunity to be one of the icon to our people. Like when I came here, they all have been happy because they know the role which I have been playing, because I don't keep myself in the city. I used to be with them. I really understand how they feel, and they really know me, how I should be helpful to them.
Thank you so much. And I think that deserves a congratulations to you and to the women of my Wood County. This really is a great moment in history. And we're glad we are part of the movement of breaking history. Honorable Christine, The question was also directed to you, and I would kindly ask if you can just give particular points or agenda points that you have for your constituency. That would be very helpful.
Thank you again. Of course, when you get an opportunity like this, you would have a lot of things that you will wish to address when given power. Me, personally, in my county, majority of the young girls drop out of school at a very early stage. You find children carrying children. So my first impression on my first development agenda is to advocate, first of all, for trauma healing. For trauma healing for those young mothers. You know, they are too young, they're naive, they didn't even know what they were doing. They just find themselves in that situation. As such cases, we lost so many young girls. So as a role model, as a young mother, I would love to have a ground with them, talk to them, heal them naturally, like how to convince them to accept the mistake they already did and to ensure other girls out there will not do the same thing by carrying the same message to other girls out there, and to build a friendly space for them whereby they will be given chance. There is an echo.
Honorable Akuch, if you can kindly mute your mic. Honorable Mark as well, thank you. Yes, sorry, you may continue.
Yeah, first to advocate for trauma healing, to come up with the process whereby, you know, when you talk to your fellow peer, you understand more than somebody elder to you speaking to you. So to bring few young dropout mothers, talk to them. Those who have issues, they should just speak it out. That's a part of the healing. And secondly, to create for them is friendly space, and also create for them activity, and to advocate for them that when you become a mother doesn't stop you to go back to school. To also advocate a center for dropout mothers. If I have a capacity, I will also support them in school. If their children are, okay, others have mothers. If their parents are able to support them by taking care of the children, then they go back to school, it will also be better. As long as I have a capacity, I can go ahead with that. The girl child education. It is always said when you educate a girl child, you have educated the nation. You know, we are women, and if we are empowered, if we know our right, most of the issues that happen, especially to young children today, because we are not open to talk about sexuality education. If we are open.
Yes, if I can please allow, just summarize so that we can also get to our other panelists.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm talking about the issue of comprehensive sexuality education. That as South Sudanese, we fear to speak it openly to our children. If I manage to speak to mothers, to schools, like going from one school to another, I did it before. For example, children at the puberty age, if you are able to speak to them about the more they grow, a lot of things will change, prepare them mentally, they will never mess in their life. Also,
okay,
the issue of education, one more, the issue of education. There are children who drop out because they don't know even the importance of education. As young parliamentarians, me, myself, I'll take it like it's my role to carry on. Most children are coming from an educated background, of which they don't know importance of education. Nobody give them that steps to carry on. So if they can have few role models, they can progress and know the importance of education. Each person needs a role model, something that will push them forward to look forward for the future.
Okay, we talked about constituencies just now, and I think it will also be great for us to just get a little bit to know from you all. Have you met your constituents? Have you been able to go to your constituency? How do you connect and relate with them? Do you meet in your communities here in Juba? How exactly do you relate to your communities as of right now? And have you had the chance to be able to go down to your constituency? Honorable Akuch? Kindly unmute yourself.
Thank you once again. Personally, I think I've been able to visit my constituency, but it was not an official visit. It was not official, it was a personal visit. But given that visit, I've been able to interact with the community on the ground, and they know that I'm somebody that represents them in the national parliament. And at the same time, I've been able to interact with them here in Juba. We've had a lot of community shows, and I get invited, and they know me. I'm relevant to them. Yeah. The other thing that is also preventing us from, let me say, visiting our constituencies is that when you are visiting your constituency, it should be official. It should be official. Directives must come from the parliament. You cannot just go on your own and you start, imposing yourself on the people, and lying to people that it is official and all that kind of stuff. But once we are given the green light by the parliament, once it is time for us to go and visit our people, we will be able to visit them and talk to them really, and let them know us that we are there for them and we are there to represent them. Yeah. Can you unmute yourself? I'm not getting you.
Yes. Honorable Margaret, I'd like to move on to you and just kind of mix the two questions that we had already laid earlier. Is that what are some of your main principles and key agenda points that you have for your constituency? And also, have you been able to meet your fellow constituents? Is it in community associations in Juba? How have you been able to connect with them in this time period? You can kindly unmute yourself, Honorable Margaret. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I would love to ask that if we have enough to I would love to say yes, because if you see the RRCs, there is no percentage which is allocated to the youth. The peace agreement is silent on the percentage that some say 10%, some say 20%, but for the women, so it's easy for us to identify the percentage of the women who was fulfilled or not. But for the youth aspect, I think it is difficult for us to say because
Honorable, I think you're breaking. We cannot hear you correctly. I think your connection is a bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was talking about the issue of youth representation in the committees. The fact that the peace agreement is silent on the percentage that should be allocated to the youth. So it is hard for us to identify whether we were underrepresented or we were represented. For example, you can see the issue of women is outlined in the agreement, the issue of 35%. So it is easy for us to identify that we reached the ceiling of 35% or we have gone below it or over it. So for the male aspect of it, it is not clear, particularly for the youth. There is no percentage there. Some say it is 20%, some say it's 10%, but unfortunately the peace agreement did not state it clearly. So if you see also the youth that we have in the committees, I think we only have one woman also. So that is also a challenge, that when we talk about youth, people always talk about the male aspect of things. As Yar stated clearly, if you're a young woman, they will say you go to women caucus or women league. If you go to women league, they will tell you go to youth. So we are just left in between the youth and in between the women. So that is the issue that we are facing as youth. And I think it is clear, it is important that we need to put in the constitution what is the percentage of the youth representation in all aspects, from the grassroots to the national level. I think we need to do that as young parliamentarians, and actually as women also. I think we need to push on that agenda. And opportunities that the position being in the parliament has brought me, I think the opportunities are many that I cannot count them. The fact that I can freely get access to my community. I'm fortunate enough that we did fundraising last week to take some kids to school, my constituency, and I'm one of the organizers for the fundraising, and we were able to take like 10 kids to school. I think that is a big opportunity for me. And the fact that right now we are working on reconciliation program within my constituency. As you all know, my administrative area has a lot of insecurities, and being able to impact them and teach them how to handle the issue of trauma and healing, and how to just coexist with our neighbors, I think it is important. So those are the opportunities that I'm able to get, and I'm able to at least contribute. Although we don't have facilitation yet, to go to our constituency, I think by starting with whatever we can have is important. So I'm fortunate enough that I did these services to my constituency, and I believe that if I have the facilitation, I will do more.
Great, I think that's really a good initiative. And speaking of RRCs in the agreement, we had a great question just now popped up, and I believe it is from Lual. Yes, from Lual Chulbol, who's asking, young female parliamentarians, what is your take in the slow implementation of Chapter 2 of the RRCs in regards to the scheduled elections of 2023? And I think I'll push this to Honorable Yar to go first. Mr. Lual wants to know, what is your take on the slow implementation of Chapter 2? And how does it affect not only the processes, but as well the scheduled elections that are supposed to be held next year?
First of all, thank you so much, Lual Chulbol, for the question. It's a very, very important question, as we are actually heading towards the elections as per the agreement. However, in my opinion, there is no way we'll go for elections without a census done. There is no way we can go for an election without a unified force. We need to have an army that protects the dignity of this country, not an army that is allied to different groups. For instance, the IDPs who are still the internally displaced people, they also need to go back to their homes for them to be able to vote and for them to also feel safe. So it's really unfortunate that until now there is no clear status of what Chapter 2 of the graduation of the unified forces. It's really unfortunate. By now we're not sure when we're going to have the graduation done and when we should probably head for election, because we can't go for an election without a national census. What are you're going to be counting votes against what? You don't know the number of people. The last census that we held was in 2008, and now it's 2021. So many people have passed on. The 2 wars that have happened, and again the people who probably left the country. So yes, elections cannot happen without Chapter 2. Full implementation of Chapter 2 needs to be there. Rather, full implementation of the revitalized agreement needs to be realized for us to be able to go for an election, credible election.
Yeah, and I think that is definitely a major point that many still have questions for, and we keep hearing graduation will happen soon, it will happen soon, but there are no dates, and 2023 is coming quite fast. So that is a very critical point that I think we need to address as a country. And I think just rolling back a little bit into the business of Parliament, there's so many bills right now that are on the table that have been waiting since last year, the year before that, and however long we have waited for the Parliament to be reconstituted. And I think they're very important bills that are related even to going into elections next year. which is a whole other aspect. But in terms of the conducting business, how have you all experienced how Parliament works? Has there been, a good orientation for young people, but also is there enough being done to make sure that this bills and all the major documents that are needed to ensure that as a country we're running smoothly are happening? And I think I will direct this question to Honorable Akuch. Your experience conducting business in the Parliament so far, do you think enough is being done, enough attention is being given to the needs that we have right now as a country, even before we speak about elections?
I think,
Before you answer, I'd like to kindly ask Honorable Margaret to mute herself. We can hear the echoes in the background. Honorable Margaret, yes, thank you. Honorable Coach.
Okay, yes. Thank you once again, Mrs. Nyataklam. I think when it comes to running the business of the Parliament, the Parliament was reconstituted in August last year, August 2021. And I think the first step that was taken by the Parliament is let me say, it's an initiation process where the new MPs or even the old one needs to be initiated into the Parliament. And by that, we conducted several workshops for us to be introduced to the documents, the legal documents that run the Parliament. First, it was the conduct of business. We have to be introduced to the conduct of business. The conduct of business was also amended. The conduct of business for the Transitional National Legislative Assembly was amended. The conduct of business for the Transitional National Legislature was also amended. So these are the major two documents that runs the Parliament and okay, sorry. These are the two major documents that run the Parliament: the Transitional National Legislative Assembly and the National Legislature. The conduct of business for the National Legislature, and then the conduct of business for the National Legislative Assembly. We were able to be introduced to these documents, and we have done a lot of orientation workshops for them. If by any chance one do not know how or one is being affected by how the business in the Parliament is being run, then it should be, I'd say it will be it's out of ignorance, because it's like a school where you have to come, you read books and all that. If you do not read these books, you may not pass the exam. It's the same thing in the Parliament. If you do not read these major documents, then you will not know when to raise a point of order, when to raise a point of information, when to raise a point of privilege, and all that is needed to run the businesses in the House. So with the help of the Parliament, we have been able to be introduced to most of these things. Yeah, we were able to know what is going on in the Parliament. Back over to you, Mrs. Nyadak.
Thank you so much, Honorable Akuch, for that contribution. I think I would also direct it to Honorable Christine. There are a lot of bills, not only youth bills, which also has been a major discussion among youth spaces. What are your efforts and your contributions to make sure that these bills are tabled and are passed?
Thank you once again. We as young parliamentarians, not only the women, are looking forward for the youth bill that has been there for so long. On Wednesday, they managed to table the budget, which will take after 45 days. That is when it will be brought back. So from the budget, then the rest of the bill will follow. And I will also give thanks to other women organizations that have tried their best to prepare young women in regards to bills that concern women. We managed to go through the bill last time, and they prepare us on how bill is always been presented, second reading and all that, so that we are aware of the activities that are running within the parliament.
Yes, Honorable Christine. Sorry, we lost you there for a minute. Can you kindly just refer back to your last statement? Sorry, I think we lost you.
Thank you. I was saying about the bills. There are so many bills that are about to be tabled. The first one is the budget, which was tabled last Wednesday, and it will take 45 days to be brought back to Parliament again after the business. Secondly, I would like to acknowledge the effort of women organizations that always empower women to get ready to know what is happening in the parliament, how bills are tabled, and how to handle it before time. I will also recognize, like last time, one of the women organization brought few of us also to give us a clue on how the budget is read, how it is addressed in the parliament. And the bill that we are really looking forward is the youth bill and the bills that are dealing with gender issues.
And I think that's it's very critical because, of course, another question has been because you're in the parliament for the very first time, was there adequate support that was given to ensure that you have what you need to be able to conduct business, quote unquote, as other parliamentarians, so that also you're not disadvantaged? And I think it's also important to note that just because they're young parliamentarians does not mean that they're only going to focus on youth bills, right? They're part and parcel of the parliament just like anybody else, and it is important that they're also able to join into other bills. We have security bills, we have economic bills that are also in the waiting line, and I think it is important to also highlight to people how you're going to be able to support that. We have a question here for Honorable Yar Tilar, and there is something she wanted to add, but we'll let her add that after she answers this question, which is, I think, a very great question from Mr. McCoy Makender. And he asks, Honorable Yar, how are you prepared to make a change, especially in engaging young females in capacity building, and what mechanisms will help to encounter negative perception on feminism and cultural motives? Wow, that is a very loaded question. Honorable Yatilar, I don't know if you are there. Can you please? Okay, wonderful. We have
this is amazing.
Yes.
I don't know if I should first answer the question or I should add what I wanted to add. In regards to, there's been lots of talk going on in regards to the elections, etc. And when you were talking about the bills, I realized that I had forgotten to mention the fact that we also have the constitution making process bill that is set to be, and it's, as per the agreement, it's meant to be 24 months. The budget has just come to Parliament. Then we have the security bills, all the 6 security bills. Thereafter, we have the economic bills, the constitution-making process bill. Then after the constitution-making process bill, we also have the political parties bill, which I mean, we need all of that before we can go for an election. Now back to the question. Thank you so much, Marcoy. How am I prepared to make a change, especially in engaging young females in capacity building, and what mechanisms will help to encounter negative perception on feminism and cultural motives? First of all, as I usually say, every single person has a role to play in our own little ways. And I usually believe a lot in mentorship, intergenerational mentorship. We need the older ones to mentor us, and we also need to mentor other young girls. So in that way, I'll be able to make little changes here and there. I can't give, I'm sorry, I'm not going to start saying I'll do ABCD and ABCD, or just saying so many things that I'm expected to do and then I end up not doing them. So I'll just be honest, I will do what I can do in my own little ways, especially when it comes to mentoring and capacity building. If it's also quite important to note that with a really huge parliament of 650, that's 550 TNLA, and then Council of States make it 650, we do not have the CDF. So it's very difficult for one to even have any sustainable project. And also considering our economy, we do not have the resources to be able to do so many things. So in our own little ways, we'll be able to impact the young females around us, the young females in our constituencies. It starts from even within your own family, your own cousins, your own, your own sisters. It doesn't have to start all, it doesn't have to be something huge. So in our own little ways, yes. And then what mechanisms will help to counter negative perception on feminism and cultural motives? We have lots of beautiful aspects to our culture, and we also have the negative ones. It's a step. It's a process, especially when it comes to cultural motives. You just can't wake up one day and decide that we're going to change most of our culture. For instance, let's talk about bride price. These are conversations that need to be held. This is not something that we can wake up one day and decide we're changing everything around bride price. There's bride price reduction, yes, but then it's a process. We need to actually sit down with the elders and explain to them why we think it's wrong. Then feminism. Feminism is not only about women. This is one thing that people forget. It's about gender equality for both sexes, for both male and female. So the perception of what other people have, and it comes from both male and female. Sometimes female will use feminism as a cover-up for whatever wrongs they're doing, but then and at the same time, males try and bring down women and say, no, we don't want feminism. We're not from the Western world. But it's also quite important to note that Junubin men respect their women. I don't know. It's the Western culture that. Sorry to say that Junubin men literally, even in the olden days, women were given their status in the society. It's just lately that I think things have changed and women are being looked down on and all that. But Junubin men generally, as per our cultures, I am a Dinka, as per our Dinka cultures, Junubin men tend to respect women. It's just when it comes to times of representation or work, that's when, oh, you're a woman, you're not meant to do this and that. But when it comes to respect, we get the respect from the men that and how we are meant to get it. So I hope I've answered your question. I don't know what mechanisms that we can definitely put in place, but as I said earlier, it's a conversation that we need to have. Once we have a safe place to have these conversations, talk about what do you think the feminists are doing wrong? How do you think we should approach it? What do we think you're doing wrong as men? How do you think we can approach it? There's so many things that we can actually discuss. Everything starts with a conversation. Once we've started with the conversations, then we will be on the right track. And perhaps when we stop with the blame game here and there,
Great. Thank you so much. I think that was definitely a really good insight, and it's a conversation that needs to be had across different platforms. I think we have time for one more question. Then we can move on with the rest of our discussion here today. We have one here from Nanoya again. Thank you, Nanoya, for being such a great contributor. She says, we have been lobbying for 20% allocation for youth, and we made it very clear during the national dialogue. So it needs more efforts to make it official. Concerning being a female youth, if you're below 35 years old, then you are youth. If you don't have any right in 35% for women allocation. The EAC youth policy is very clear, but I think we, the youth, are going to be organized when youth bills have been passed officially by the parliament. Thank you, Nanoya, for your comment. I think that is more of a comment than it is a question. In regards to 35% and 20% allocation. So if we have, we can take one more question from our audience. If you have a burning question here for our panelists, our parliamentarians. But let me move on as we wait for that question to come. And I think it is also important, speaking of 35%, for us to dive in a little bit on that, because I think there's not really a good understanding among our people, especially our young women, about what 35% actually means. And I think I would like Honorable Margaret, if you can kindly contribute on this question, is that what is 35%? What does it mean to you? And how would you like other fellow young women to understand 35%? Kindly unmute yourself, please, Honorable Margaret. Sorry, my apologies, we cannot hear you. I think Honorable Margaret is having a little bit of a technical issue. Let me pose a question to Honorable Nyabonyi, and then I'll come right back to you as we try to get you on the line. Honorable Nyabonyi, I think you can also.
I'm not hearing. I'm not hearing anything.
Yes, I was asking the question of 35%. Someone brought in the question of 35%, and I think it has been a very contested issue for a while, saying that women only deserve 35%. So I think it's really important in this discussion that you also highlight what does that 5% mean to you, and how are you sharing it with women in your constituency, particularly young women, as to how they can implement that 5%.
Well, the question is very impressive to me. 35% to me, it means our contribution as a women in any agreement which is a government institution for government institution. For example, when we were going for any official thing, like when the formation of the government of national unity was formed, it was meant there to make it as an agreement that women must have a percentage so that they should represent their fellow women. So wherever they are from their different constituency. So that's why it was there, because the perception of our fellow men always is negative against women. This is what we all know so far, because they don't give us chance so that women should be part of the leadership. So when the leadership and the other international communities see that our people are not exercising that opportunity that our women should contribute equally with men, so this 35% was put there, and it become like a threat to them, because we applied, or the other international community was a threat to them. They forced them that it must be a must that there must be 35%. And also there must be, it is must that there must be a youth representative. So for that reason, it was really very good to us that we have to show it to our fellow women that 35% is for all of us. So each and every woman who is interested to be part of the government leadership, you must stood up for your 35%, and then you have to fight for it.
Great. Honorable Margaret, I'd like to circle back the same question. I hope we can. Yes, you're welcome. I think we're still having a little bit of a mic issue on your end. No. Okay. Let me move on to Honorable Yar if you have a few sentiments to this question, and then we can come back to Honorable Margaret as we try to figure out our connection. Thank you.
You know, I usually get excited when I hear about this 35% because I envision a time where we will not have a percentage capped to us and we'll be able to compete on the same level ground with our counterparts, the males. The 35%, for instance, now let's even look at the governors. We only have one female governor. So is there realization of the 35%? None. In Parliament, we have not yet met the 35%. I think SPLM-IO is the only party that has met 35% implementation, especially when it comes in Parliament. Even the female governor is from SPLM-IO, which and they were given three. One is a female governor. The 35% to me is a starting point to more. I'm hoping by the time our children are joining these spaces, it will be equal or more or less like Rwanda, you know, where there are more females in positions of influence and power. But then we also have to notice that I think it was said earlier, and I had to jot it down, being in power without power. So you have the power, but you don't have you're in power, but you don't have the actual power. You're not able to influence decisions. So I think we also need to push for this 35% to be in positions of influence where we can influence the decisions that are made. You can't be sitting down discussing women issues and there's no woman in the room to change this, to actually bring a change. So we need to actually push for the 35% decision-making positions, not just being in power without the actual power. We need to be in power plus the actual power on our side as well, so that we make decisions that affect the woman positively. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a very important contribution. Honorable Christine, I think you can also just quickly chime in as we let Honorable Margaret come back in. What has been the discussion within your groups, within your parties, about how 35% can be really implemented?
Thank you again. SPLM has actually tried their level best to ensure their 35% is implemented, even the 20%. 20% drop out the moment when they say those who are elected must go back to their positions. That's why SPLM lost a lot of young parliamentarians, because by then, those who are young are no longer young, 11 years ago. So if that change were to continue, we would have more 20% and 30% implementation. Secondly, the issue of 35%, according to me, it's for that allocation is given for somebody who doesn't have capacity of being there. But women that have capacity are supposed to compete. We don't need to be allocated like you have this specific amount. I think we are misinterpreting this issue of 35%. Because women that are able to compete with men to get the positions, they are not supposed to be accorded as 35%. That is how we're supposed to take it up. It shouldn't be counted as something given because you worked for it.
I definitely found it important for us to highlight that issue, because also I found that within young people, there's a different understanding of what that 5% is. And again, I think just like Honorable Yar said, it is really the bare minimum. And that 5% does not mean that you have to, if there's 100 people, find that 5% of that. It just means that we are pushing for affirmative action for women to be in spaces, but that does not mean that they do not push out of their own and they do not support each other with the competency and the merit that they have to be able to push themselves into these spaces that they clearly deserve based on their own merit. So thank you so much, all of you, for those insights. Honorable Akuch, as we continue to move on, I think it's important to also just give a word of encouragement for young women who might be interested in joining politics. May not just be parliament, but may be other level of parliament. Because another thing that I have heard also as a person working in civil society is that you need to join political parties. You need to make sure you understand politics in order to serve. What are your sentiments on that? And what is some of the encouragement that you can give fellow young women who want to be active in the space?
Thank you once again, Yadaklam. I think the first thing for a person is to be courageous. Courage is very important because in South Sudan, if you're not a courageous person, you are not able to achieve what you want in life. It's very important for young people to be very, very courageous because no matter what, you will always be pulled down, due to your age. You will always be told that you're very young, you cannot participate in politics. But if you know that you're determined, if you know that you have the determination to be what you want to be in life, then you do not have to listen to any other person, but you have to be listening to your inner self and continue to to rise in whatever you want to achieve. So courage is very, very, very important. You have to be very courageous and be very, very, very strong. And you also have to follow the right people. Following the right person is very important when it comes to politics. If you follow the wrong person, you may end up you may end up digging your own grave. So it's very important to follow the right people in politics, get the right mentorship, and continue to be what you aspire to be.
Thank you so much for that. I think before we move on, I'd like to come right back to Honorable Margaret and just return to her back the same question before we lost her. Honorable Margaret, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I understood the question. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Welcome.
Yeah, the question was in regard to the 35%. First and foremost, yes. I would love to say that 35% is for every woman, whether you're young, you're old, it's across the board. And the issue of 35%, what we don't understand is that 35% is an affirmative action, which in true sense, it should be reducing every year. The goal of 35% is that it should be the list that a woman should get. But what we are expecting is that every year it should be reducing. It means that when it's reduced every year, women are getting automatically positions in the leadership. In the next 5 years, people should not be talking about 35% because it was an affirmative action. It should be done by the next 5 years. So 35% is just an affirmative action which was put in the agreement. But the expectation is that when we had there was a workshop in Djibouti with women leaders, and people talked about the issue of 35%, and it is something that we are not expecting us to talk about it in the next 10 years or in the next 5 years. That is why it is called 35% affirmative action. And every year, the issue of 35% should be going down. 25%, 10%, 15%, until there is no more 35%. So I think that is what most of people don't understand in the regards to 35%. And I would love also to add something on the issue of the capacity building. I think we were fortunate enough that when we joined the parliament, Ms. Adenglek, she really helped the young parliamentarians, and she also helped other women in the parliament, the newcomers, the other one, to give us the induction and orientation. So I think as the members of parliament, we need to appreciate our work. She has been conducting so many workshops to empower women, to build capacities of women parliamentarians, not only as the young ones, but also those who are there previously, for us to be active in the parliament. So I think we need to appreciate Ms. Adeng for taking her time, her resources to do that for us. So we appreciate her, and we appreciate the role that she has played. And she has made sure that we understood the conduct of business and the role and procedure of the parliament. So she has done something that needs to be appreciated. And I would love to add something on the on the issue of peace agreement, the delayment and the process of election. I think people focus so much on the chapter 2 of the peace agreement, while even chapter 1 currently we have not completely established chapter 1. the chapter 1 of the peace agreement is not yet completed. And I think it is important that we complete it. And also chapter 2, it is essential. So as chapter 3 and all of the other chapters in the peace agreement, all of the other chapters as important as chapter 1 and chapter 2. For us to have a fair elections, I think we need to implement agreement in spirit and in letter. So it is important that we also focuses on other chapters like the issue of repatriation, the issue of reconciliation. And when we talk about bringing back the IDPs or repatriating the refugees, what have we put in place? What are the plans that we have put in place as the government to ensure that they come to the country and they come and stay in dignity. And if we see the repatriation in the United Nations document, it talks about return of refugee, but with conditions. And have we set those conditions in place? Have we put in conditions that these people have lost their homes? They don't have businesses. They are going to start from scratch. So we cannot call about repatriation when we have not put policy or work plan in place to make sure that they return safely to their homes, to make sure that they return to homes that are there. Right now, there are some counties that don't have people. People are in camps. How are we talking about them to come back when they don't have anything to come to? So we need to put policy in place also to ensure that the repatriation is done with dignity and we put them into consideration. So I think the aspect of election is something that we, all the citizens, want. And it is the call of the citizens to have a free and fair election, an election whereby everyone is going to respect the process. So if we want to have free and fair election, why not implement the entire agreement? Not only chapter 1 and chapter 2, but the all chapters, the 8 chapters of the peace agreement are essential. That is why we had those chapters. If they were not important, I believe we would have only have 2 chapters. But because those other chapters are important also, we need to implement those chapters too.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. That's actually a very strong message. We'd like to also give our thanks to Honorable Adeng. Thank you so much for also supporting our young female parliamentarians. And I think you have really nailed it, that there's a lot that needs to be done, and not just chapter 2, but every single chapter. And I think before I move on to the question that I had asked earlier, I think also another great important point that we need to touch on is what kind of support do you need from the public, from civil society, from people who may have the technical know-how to be able to push and fulfill your mandates in Parliament.
As a parliamentarians, I think we have a very big voice. Some people always say, behave like a politician, but not as an activist, because whatever you can say can create chaos or create peace. So I think it is important that we use our voice in a way that we use it for unity. We use our voice to unite people, because whatever can be taken, whatever you can say, the citizen can literally take it as it is. So I think our voices as young parliamentarians is important, and our voices is the unity. It is what can unite us, and I think our unity is paramount.
I think I would also. I think we just lost her. Okay, we will try and get back to her. As I would also like to hear insights on the same question. But as I roll back to the question that I had asked earlier, Honorable Christine, what do you think? What are some of the points that you would like to give to young women who are interested in peace building, or are interested in joining politics across different levels, not just Parliament, but also other entities, higher entities? What are some of the encouragement words that you can share with them and for them that you think will help prepare them for this space?
My message to young ladies outside there: always do best. Whatever you are doing, do it perfectly. Be humble. Brave. Support your fellow sister. If you can, talk to at least 2 or 3 people in a day, young girls. Try to share with them your story. They will get to learn from there. Be confident. And if you want to become a politician, You must have a crowd. You must have a party. Be good with your party. Always talk positively. If you're an activist, do your part. The same what, is it Margaret? They always tell us, you have not lived your activism part, because most of us start from there. You need to, as a politician, of course, activists will expect you to continue talking the way you used to be before. But the moment you are in, the language always change. So it is difficult sometimes for them to understand. But when you meet somebody face to face, that is when somebody can understand that there is a difference between being activists and being a politician. But still we play our role with the things that affect us, being a girl and being a woman, and the issues that are general, that will affect a human being. That is where we stand, but we still have some reservation somewhere.
Okay, I'd like to remind our viewers and our listeners we have time for just one more question as we wind up this great session. So please, if you have a burning question, we would like to hear it. We'd like to share it with our panelists here. So please add it to the chat. Honorable Nyaboin, we're glad to have you back. I was asking a very important question, is that what is the encouragement you have for young people, especially young women who would like to join this kind of a space?
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am. Please continue.
Good. Thank you so much once again for giving me this question. My advice to my fellow women who are inspiring to join this platform or to join politics is what I can say is that nothing is impossible. Being a politician is normal, like the way you are. But first thing that you put in mind is set your goal, have your dream. So when you dream about something, you have to put your effort so that you have to fulfill it. Being a politician, it is something normal which you can make it. So when you follow your dream, you will make it. Like when we have a courage that we want to be a politician or we want to join politics, we make it. But in one thing, so when you want to join politics, my advice is nobody's going to knock your door. You are the one who is looking for it. Whenever chances you get, you have to grab it, as Honorable Yar mentioned before. So in everything, you have to grab whatever come across you. So you cannot keep quiet. Follow your dream and grab whatever chance which came across you. So this is what I can tell them.
Thank you so much for that important message, and I hope there are young women who are listening here. And also, I believe it will be a great opportunity to reach out to the fellow honorables as you see them, as you meet them, to also get guidance. And I think we'll also ask the panelists later as to how they can be able also to support other fellow young women. We had a comment just now from Ms. Jocelyn. If we can bring it up on the screen, I think it would be also important to highlight that. Yes, we had a comment from Ms. Jocelyn Icharon who is saying, yes, it's important to implement all chapters, but that should not be used as an argument against conducting national elections. Implementation of the peace agreement should be a continuing process, and some of the chapters should be implemented concurrently. Thank you, Ms. Jocelyn, for your comments here. We also have another comment from Ms. Susan Hanning, who is saying, ladies, we are diligently listening to your discussion, which are very impressive. However, we hope you will implement all these ideas as lawmakers in the land. Being young is good, but never ignore advice from those older than you. Thank you, Ms. Susan, for that comment. We have another comment from Mr. Samuel here who's saying, public are complaining that the current parliament isn't doing public interest rather than their parties where they come. How can you clear that doubt to us honorable members? I think we can take that as our very last question for this question. He was asking that there's apparently discussions in the town that honorables are not working for the favors of the constituency, but those of their political parties. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but Honorable Akuch, what are your thoughts on that? Kindly please unmute yourself.
It's an interesting question that comes from somebody that comes from my constituency. So I welcome the question. No, it's not true. It's not true that the parliament is doing the interests of the parties. It's not true. We are for the people of South Sudan. We represent the people of South Sudan. We do not only represent our parties. Yes, we came through the tickets of our parties, but the reason why we came through the ticket of our respective parties is to represent our people. And so the interest we are doing currently at the parliament is not the interest of any party, but it's the interest of the people of South Sudan. That's what I can say about it. There's nothing different that we are doing in the parliament. There's nothing that concerns parties that we are doing in the parliament. We are representing our people. That's what we are doing.
I see Honorable Yar and Honorable Christine smiling.
I'm smiling because as much as Honorable Akut says that, I have a different way of looking at it. We are peace partners. Therefore, we are coming to implement what our parties agree on. Our parties, for instance, that's why it's very important for you to align yourself to a party that agrees with your ideologies. For our party, we are pushing for, is it 40% women representation? If that's what my party is pushing for, I'll push for that in parliament. But then when at some point your party line goes contrary to your morals as a person, then you have every right to say no. But what people are saying, that most of the MPs are there to work for their parties, I would say I partly agree with that, because we've been brought in through our parties. We've not been elected. It's elected members who are working for the rights of for the constituency members. But then you've been brought in through a party. So if you're brought in through a party, you have your party line and you have what you want to achieve as a person.
It's actually quite an interesting question. I would like to quickly, Honorable Christian, please, just like 2 minutes on that question. We'll need to wind up. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Very interesting indeed. Of course, yes, we came through the parties, of which it is degree, not election. The degree that brings you in can take you out. But in that house called Parliament, we are the representative of the people. Of course, even if you come through the party, there is a community where you are coming from. Without that community, you will not even present you cannot sit to present people in the parliament. So the two are connected together. There is a party and there is a community. So now then, the interest of the party, of course, even the consultative meeting that happened recently for the chairs or any other position, you sit as a party and discuss first, because before you are appointed or any other thing. But it's still on back of your mind, you know where you are coming from. So the two are interconnected. Then there are the general issue that you can put your constituency or your county aside, or even politics aside. That is humanity now. When it comes to things that will affect a human being, you as a person, that is when you step forward at individual level now to take a decision. Thank you.
Those are very powerful words, and I think there'll be a whole separate discussion after this on what that means, and of course, it's still an ongoing thing. Unfortunately, this was such a great session that I have to start winding up. So we could have our last comments as our panelists. What are your last remarks? Some keynotes that you want our listeners and our viewers to know out of this session. I think that will be very important, and then we can show up the last comments as we close this session. So, Honorable Nyaboing, I'd like to start with you. You can give us your last remarks as we wind up this session. Kindly unmute your mic. Yes, what is the message you have and what are your last remarks? I'm sorry, we're having a bit of.
Can you unmute your mic, Nyadak? We're not getting you.
Yes, I think Honorable Nyaboing is having a bit of an issue, so we'll come back to her. Honorable Kuch, you can answer the same question as we get Honorable Nyaboing back. What is the message that you have and what are your last remarks?
Sorry, I did not hear you.
Okay, I think we're having a little bit of an issue here, technical difficulty. We apologize for that. Honorable Christian, can you hear me?
Yeah, your voice is cracking up. I'm not getting some of the words you're saying.
Oh, okay. I think that would be my connection. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I was Honorable Akuch, I think you can continue. We're saying, what is your message that you'd like our viewers and the public who are watching this to know, not only about being young or a female, or about parliamentary processes? What are some of the key notes that you think people should take out of this discussion today? And what are your last notes?
I think I'll take this one.
Okay.
My takeout from today is, number one, in politics, you need to develop yourself, invest in yourself. Someone said earlier, never ignore advice from those older than you. So get advice from the older ones, connect with your people, with God, and with family. The other thing that I'd also like to add as a takeout as well is, if you're in a position to make your own money, we never talk about this, but we have to. You cannot survive in politics without making your own money. So before you join politics, try and make sure you make your own money, or else you'll just be a yes person, because that's where the influence comes from. Whoever has the deep pockets influences. But then if you're just running after the ones who have the deep pockets, then you're a yes person. Whatever they say is what you agree to. So that's what I'd like to add. Let's make our money. Let's start our businesses as women as well. There is a lot to be done with financial independence. So once we have our financial independence, then you're able to thrive in politics. Work on yourself. Personally, I don't write or read Arabic. That's one of the things that I want to do this year. Read and write. I want to invest more in myself. I am a bookworm. I love reading, so I'll continue reading. And I think the other young women out there want to join politics. You learn every day, and be open. There's things that I don't know in life, and I'm ready to learn. I am so green in so many things. I remember we had a conversation with Lorna, and I was telling her, Lorna Merekeje, and I told her, Lorna, the budget is coming up soon. And to be honest, I don't even know what I'm going to do, because I have never been in any budget reading. But here she was, and she trained us. So be open to learning. When you don't know something, don't behave as if you know it. You do not know it. Learn it. We all learn on the job. No one's born on the job. And attach yourself to get a mentor or someone who can help you, and in return also pass down the knowledge to somebody else. There is no bad or there's no negative or positive influence that can affect you as long as you decide. So it's all about you as a person. What do you want to do? And how do you want to impact the people around you? Thank you.
Wow, okay. That was a message and a half. And I definitely have received it, and I hope you all have. Honorable Akuch, your message, your last words.
Thank you once again. I think it has been an interesting discussion. I've had the chance to interact with all these amazing women, and I want to.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you clearly. I think if you can just put up your volume.
Oh,
Yes.
can you hear me now? Are you getting me clearly?
I'm getting you clearly.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to once again thank the South Sudan Women Intellectual Forum for inviting us, me and my colleagues, to have this wonderful discussion. I think my take on this discussion is that as women, it is very important that we need to hold our hands together and move forward, because I believe if we are divided, we cannot move together. We should forget the issue of which party you come from or what party you came from or what party brought you and all that stuff. But we should be one, we should be united as women, because we are still at a very, very young age where we need to learn from each other together, where we need to learn from other people together, where we need to share opportunities that are meant to benefit all of us. So it's very important as young women, that as young women, especially young women in politics, to be able to move together with our hands held. We shouldn't be competing among ourselves, because competition can never take us anywhere. Even if we come from different parties, yes, it's true. We cannot deny the fact that we were nominated by our parties to come and represent our people, but also put it in the back of our mind that this is not the end of everything. This is not the end of politics. We still have more politics to do ahead of us. So if we do not, if we spoil the little relationship, the relationship that we have now, we may not be able to move forward in the next future in the leadership to come, because it is not the end of it. It's not the end of time. So moving together, putting our hands together, sharing opportunities among ourselves as women is very, very important, because we have one common goal.
Thank you so much, Honorable
Yeah.
Nyapuan. If you can please connect. Yes, what is your message and your last words?
My message to my fellow country is I should start it with my fellow women. I want to tell you is politics is a learning process. Everything you do in politics, it is a learning process. So as a young parliamentarian, I would advise all my fellow young parliamentarians to put the negative thoughts which has been coming out and in to neglect us and to use aside. And then we have to move forward for the betterness of our country, which is South Sudan. So no matter which party you came from, as Honorable Akush mentioned earlier, so our aim is to bring South Sudan together and to work for the betterness of our country. So as a fellow woman, I would love to tell you that we are there for you and you will be there for us too. We are your bush, as you expect us to work hard for you, and we will do it for you. So this is what I can just tell you. Another thing is for us as a young parliamentarian, we need to read a lot of books so that we capacitate ourselves, especially those books which are related to the policy of legislative and many things that come across your leadership. You have to read them and understand them so that you should be capable to reason out whatever come across your duty. This is what I would love to tell my fellow people.
Thank you so much, Honorable Nyaboin, for those words. I think that is very important, and you're all saying such beautiful things. We had a comment earlier that I wanted to highlight just before we conclude, before I move on to Honorable Christine. If I can just pull it up, that would be great. Okay, we have a message from the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum, which says, thank you to all our audience for the active participation and for the support for the forum. We appreciate you, and we'd like to thank our panelists for sharing their knowledge with us and the moderator for the great moderation. We appreciate you and women for supporting the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum with access to internet and a safe space for women to discuss issues that affect them. And I think definitely we are thankful for all the support. We're grateful for all the support that we're getting to make this happen. Honorable Christine, I'd like to come to you if you can give us your last words as we wind up this session.
Thanks, a lot has been shared. I just want to go back a bit with the issue of the Chapter 2 of Agreement. I want everybody to be patient. I happen to contribute in SDSR, that is Strategic Defense Security Review. There are a lot going up there. With the big number of generals, it takes so much for the leadership to decide, for example, generals, the finances and all that. It is really taking long, and it is going to be processed, as Jocelyn acknowledged earlier before. Even the same thing with the issue of census. With this limited time, it will take really long. It is a very short time now for us even to conduct the census. But let's look at what are the other possible ways that will able to help us to have elections. Maybe we need to study other countries in such a case. How can this situation be carried on? And how can the election be done without a census? Secondly, I just want to put out to everyone outside there or other political parties that let's put South Sudan above everything, above any agreement. Let's have a love for our country first. If we have a love for our country, then we won't go against what is good for our country. We will always look forward for a peaceful South Sudan. Let's see South Sudan as a better home for all of us, that when we destroy it, we will not have any other thing that will identify us as South Sudanese. Secondly, the peace implementation that we are implementing is not something that is brought from us from somewhere. It is start within you. It start within your heart. You need to start it yourself in order to share it to the next person.
Yes.
That's the message I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Christine, for that message. And I think it's really important. And if people really listen to it, we'll be able to get forward. I would have loved to have the last remarks from Honorable Margaret, but I think she dropped and she was having a few technical difficulties. So unfortunately, we will not be having her last remarks, but that is fine. I know there will always be another opportunity for another session. This session was really good, and I'm sure it was really short. Thank you again, as we just said, to all our viewers and all our contributors who helped make this discussion very colorful. And I know there's so much more that we'd like to hear from our young female parliamentarians, and we will have them on again in the near future as we continue to progress in this process and as we get to see more and more from this August House. We're definitely very optimistic and very hopeful that we will be able to achieve so much more than we did before. And it's an honor definitely to participate and be front and center as we continue to create the future of this country. So I'd like to thank my panelists once again so much, Honorable Christine Naboy Peter, Honorable Akuch Majer Manyel, Honorable Margaret Girma Lukurnyang, Honorable Nyaboin Bolwar, and Honorable Ya Tilar Ring. They have said so many great things, and I hope you really took them to heart And as you can see, they're very great people, very, lovely people. You can definitely reach out to them. Let's make it a habit to be able to reach out to our members of parliament. They really do work for the people and they do stand for something. So it's important that we take full advantage of that as we increase participation in this country. My name is Nyadak Lam. I was so excited to moderate this session with you all, and I hope to see you all next time in good health and in good grace. God bless. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to thank once again the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum for this opportunity, and I would love to see you in great health next time. Have a great day.
Thanks.